Recording. So we are recording our meeting of looks like about 30 leaders in here regarding starting up of the school year for 2021 school year. And so we'll just kind of go around and see if the purpose of this forum, I think, is going to be important. I know we all have a lot of kind of unknowns and a lot of just maybe disheartened feelings about what the guidelines were that came out. And but I think that we all can collectively put our heads together to try and get us all on the same page. I'm sure many of you are sitting in several subcommittees within your school districts and trying to come up with what does transportation look like for next year. And I think that, you know, I've heard from people changing their school, their district's going to change the school day. They're going to change the school calendar. They're going to, you know, go to a 4-day school model. Several people have asked, you know, can we put partitions on the bus or some sort of plastic? I have talked to DPS and I can share some thoughts on that a little bit later. But also just an opportunity to kind of, I think it's important for us to all come together collectively and say, we as transportation leaders feel that this is the way that we're going to try and roll out transportation and not have 100 different ways that we're all going to do it. So if anybody has an idea differently than that, wants to chime in, feel free. Those are just some of my thoughts.
So I think I'm interested to ask just quickly, I know everybody's kind of, like Jason said, brainstorming and moving through some scenarios and how realistic is it to think we can social distance on the bus? And I think many districts are kind of wrapping those things up. Has anyone had their district approve a return plan yet?
Yeah, yes, our district has moved forward with an approval plan, but it is very normal.
Oh, good. So do you want to share?
Well, our board and our superintendent, they have elected to start school as usual in a normal setting. They've elected to run routes in a normal setting. They will not be incorporating social distancing. They will not be requiring staff to wear PPE. You know, I don't necessarily agree with that, but you know, that's the decision that has been made. A couple of challenges for us in Queen Creek. If we were to social distance on buses, of course, as you all know, that means minimizing ridership, and that also means more routes. For us, we don't necessarily have the manpower to facilitate more routes, you know, nor do we have the vehicles to facilitate more routes. We were
it's both resources for a lot of us.
Yeah, we were kind of already, you know, planned out this year.
Peggy, this is Tommy from Litchfield. Did your board and your district decide to do it that way from looking at the data of cases that have been reported from the state in your area and in your district?
I'm not really sure of the premise. I can tell you that there are no known cases in Queen Creek, but as we all know, that doesn't necessarily mean that there has not been, you know, anyone who has had the virus. So,
Peggy, how do you think your drivers are going to respond to nothing at all different? Are they going to feel supported, or do you think they're going to be a little bit uncertain?
Well, I have taken some additional steps that have been approved by the superintendent and the associate superintendent that I report to. So, you know, as far as, you know, the way we're going to approach it is we're going to give our employees as much PPE as we can within guidelines of DPS and, you know, safety measures and things of that nature. So the drivers will be required to wear face masks, gloves. We're looking into smocks, face shields for the bus attendants. You guys probably call them bus aides in your district. We will be doing some sanitizing measures with the vehicles after the morning routes and after the afternoon routes daily. If there's any issues during the routes, because our buses service 3 different schools normally. So if they complete one run and let's say a child gets sick, vomits, whatever the case may be, then they're going to have to come back to the lot as soon as they drop off for, disinfecting of the bus. From my experience, this is my 30th year in transportation. I know very few of you, but I spent 29 years at Los Angeles Unified School District before I came to Queen Creek. And, there's really, without minimizing ridership and incorporating staggered bail schedules or adjusting school days, there's really, we're really limited to what we can do in transportation, because school buses are so compartmentalized, and you're already, a moving germ mobile on a regular school day. So,
Peggy, Peggy, did your district do a survey to its parents and constituents on how they feel, like what they would feel more comfortable of? For example, did they send a survey that said, do you feel comfortable putting your student on a bus and take those percentages back? Or was it a decision that they kind of looked at everything and said, well, we're just going to open as regular? Or do you even know?
I'm pretty sure they surveyed parents. I'm not sure if transportation was a part of that survey. Queen Creek is a very unique community. It's very conservative. It's predominantly Mormon. It's very political there. So, the community drives a lot of the decisions probably. I mean, that may be common in Arizona. I just, from the background I come from, I've never seen it the way it is there, per se. But of course, coming from a larger district to a smaller district, it's a huge difference. But they have had, dialogue with the community for sure. And the board members all live in the community. So, that was the decision they decided to go with. They've even already started camps this summer for athletics with thousands of kids.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody else?
Very, very interesting.
It's going to be an adventure for sure.
Yeah, they've given the staff, options with PPE from school to school, but in transportation, I have chosen to make several things mandatory. We will practice social distancing within the bus lot. For example, the driver's lounge, we will keep it to a minimum of how many people can be in there, and they will have the social distance. Anybody that enters our facility, whether it's an employee or a vendor, they must wear face masks. Our staff is, the way we're situated, we're already spread apart, but, just being mindful, cognizant of the world we live in, they had some conversation about doing temperature checks with students and face masks, but, for whatever reason, they chose not to go that route. So.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Anybody else would like to chime in and share?
Well,
At
our district,
Alhambra,
go ahead, Vanessa,
go
please.
ahead. Okay, at Alhambra, we have decided not to do temperature checks at the bus stop. If they do temperature checks, they're going to do them at the school site. And in lieu of social distancing on the bus, I did some preliminary numbers. We would need to add 29 buses to our fleet, which is 29 drivers. I didn't factor in, this is just general ed, I didn't factor in special needs, and that would come at a cost of $5.8 million. That's not really doable. So in lieu of social distancing on a bus, we are going to do face masks. And then right now the discussion is who is going to be required to wear the face masks. I know CDC has a recommendation that anyone 3 and under should not. We do, and that would be a factor for our preschool students. So some of those details are still being worked out as to who will have to wear them, but in lieu of social distancing, we're going to do face masks on the bus, and we'll provide that consumable.
Yes, so will your district provide the face masks, or will the students be required to be prepared with that?
So we are going to ask that parents provide them, but in the event that a student doesn't have one, we will provide that consumable. I mean,
Got it.
yeah.
Pretty similar to, I think, what our district is considering, at least that component of it.
Vanessa, this is Stephanie, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How are you communicating to parents the scenario where a student shows up to a bus stop and doesn't have their PPE? Are you going to deny ridership? Are you going to still allow the student to ride?
In the event that a student doesn't have the PPE, the driver will have that PPE on the bus and provide it to that student. We are not going to turn away students at the bus stop. But that's just, there's too big of a liability there, that if something were to happen, you know, we would definitely be a defendant and we don't want to go down that road. So we would provide that PPE for that student that didn't have it.
And what kind of communication are you putting out for your parents? Are you putting out like a back to school newsletter that's a little more specific to the new guidelines? What are you doing?
We actually, I'm going to be honest or transparent here, we haven't sent out a lot of communication to parents yet with regards to what we're going to be doing moving forward. Our superintendent's going to start parent meetings next week. And then we are working on, our ACT task force is working on finalizing several layers of how we're going to reopen school next year. And we're expected to start aggressive communication with parents, and that a lot of communication with parents in the beginning of July.
Will that be your transportation department's responsibility or your communications department responsibility?
It'll be the communications department's responsibility. On the one of our ACT task force committees is solely communications, and so everything will be filtered through them, through our communications task force committee.
Got it. So far what I'm hearing is most everybody's not going to be doing anything from a social distancing perspective on the school bus. Sounds like more like PPE is going to be required so that we can put more than 15 or 20 students on board. Does anybody actually going through with not having more than 14 students ride the bus that they would like to share?
The only thing different that we're doing at Cave Creek, Jason, is that our superintendent is constructing a waiver for the parents. And the waiver will consist of, these are the requirements for a student to ride a bus. And it's the parent's responsibility to sign the waiver and adhere to that waiver. I don't know what that waiver looks like yet. I'll find out Wednesday. That's our first meeting on this. We were asked to look at how many runs could have just one kid to a seat.
Sure.
All our buses, and it was 20 out of 54. So right away they knew we didn't have enough buses and we didn't have enough drivers in that situation.
Right.
Probably most districts are in that situation. So when she got that information back, ours is going to be pretty much the same, but I think the difference of ours is right now is all I know is that there'll be a waiver that will come from her office directly from her, and it says, here's what it requires for your student to ride a bus. And if the parent chooses not to follow those things that are listed in the waiver, like I said, I hope I get it Wednesday, then they won't be riding the bus per the parent's choice, not my choice, not my decision, but that comes from the district.
So are any districts, I guess, throwing around any more than one singular educational opportunity for the day, like a tiered plan? I know at Kyrene, what we're looking at is an opportunity, or the providing an opportunity for kids to return back to school, have another plan for intermittent learning, and those that want to solely do online learning. Our district's working on their online accreditation before the school year begins. So that way parents have 3 options of education for them to enroll with Kyrene. So we're looking at, based on the survey information that they've already sent out, roughly 55 to 60% of parents were wanting their students returned back to school. About 20 to 25% were unsure and kind of more in that intermediate learning opportunity, and then there was about 10 to 15 that said that they were really wanting their students to go to either online or a homeschool model. So I was wondering if any other districts were considering that, or was it, you know, kind of a one or nothing opportunity?
Also, time adjustments. Is the school day changing for anyone?
Sure.
Jason,
Yes.
Phoenix Elementary is looking at the same options that you guys are doing as far as having an opportunity for the parents to choose what they want to do with their child. Unfortunately, the majority of our students in the downtown area don't have internet. We are also providing free internet to the homes that ask for it. As far as our bus routes, most of our routes aren't full anyway. I think I only have 4 routes that have anything over 30 kids. So we're trying, and they're looking at a 4-day week with Mondays off. You know, I know Alhambra is looking at Wednesday, Cartwright's looking at Friday. So
Is the extra day for sanitation?
What's that?
Is the extra day for sanitation across the board, or?
They did not indicate that yesterday when we were discussing it in our first meeting. They looked at Monday only because that's the day the holidays fall on, and they didn't want to lose an extra day of classroom training. So, but we would look at that, and we're also looking at a double session split shift with K3 going in the morning for 4 hours, having an hour off in the middle of the day for cleaning, and then 4 to 8 coming back from 1 to 5. So, you know, there's all kinds of things being thrown around, but we have not decided on anything definite. I've also turned in plans already for distancing within the buses and showing our different capacities that we have and how many kids would fit on there and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
right now, we're just beginning.
Yeah, I think we're going to see variances throughout Arizona because there's so many districts here with different sizes and different components. There's just different challenges when you're in a unified district where you have K through 12 versus a district that only has elementary, or a district that only has high school, middle school, whatever the case may be. You know, and I just think every district across the country right now is probably looking at the 3 models of adjusting bell schedules, a hybrid, which is a combination of in the classroom and online, or just strictly online. You know, and whether they choose to implement that or not, it definitely has to be put in place, because if you start school and there's another major outbreak or just an outbreak within your district, you'll have to shut school down again.
Sure.
Which means you'll have to be prepared to make that transition, opposed to what happened this past school year, where everybody was just kind of thrown in the mix of online learning. So I'm pretty sure every district is looking at those options.
Phoenix Elementary currently is in that situation right now. You know, I've been on a 14-day quarantine along with 52 other people in the district because we had an active virus case in one of our buildings. And after we did the contact tracing, this person visited 11 of our campuses, including our plant services division. So we are shut down, and they've been going through, they've already disinfected 3 times just to make sure. And like, I can't go back until next Wednesday. And you know, it's really crazy. And they've already told us this will happen again. And this is our run through of what we're gonna do if it happens at one of our schools.
You're going to shut down for 14 days, Armando, and anyone in contact with or without symptoms?
Yep. I did go get a test along with some of my other employees, but if you don't get a quick test, you know, the average is 5 to 7 days to get the results back. So I got mine on Monday. So it's like, if I look at worst case scenario, I can go back next, Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. And, you know, it is what it is. And I've been trying to, you know, we've all been doing what we can from home.
Yeah, and I think those are conversations that have to take place as well, not just us figuring out how we're going to perform during the school year, but what do we do if we have a child on the bus that
Right.
has those
Yeah.
symptoms?
I know that our district, if something like that happens, their initial comments are they're just going to contact the state and county health department to look for guidance. I don't know that they're going to have an actual plan, so to speak, and they're just going to take those on case by case scenario. So, which again, we know it's inevitable, so it's going to be definitely interesting. I think maybe for our meeting next time to talk about how that is going to impact us from a staffing level, and what we're going to do as far as drivers who, if we're telling them up front, hey, if you have any symptoms of fever or anything from COVID, are we telling them to just stay home, right? So what does that do to potentially 10 to 30 people not showing up for work every single day, and how do we cover those routes? Because I know that at Kyrene we're not going to be able to make that happen. So let's switch to question number 5. How are you guys what are some initial thoughts about sanitizing the school bus, and how frequently your plans are to do that? Are you talking about doing it in between each run? Are you talking about doing it in between the AM and PM routes, just at the end of the day? What are some thoughts about sanitizing of the school bus?
And then our exterior temperature to benefit to us.
If I can answer that, Jason, I'm excited to share what we're doing.
Sure, Ernie.
We've been delivering meals like probably all of you have all summer, and we've been sanitizing buses once a day. We have a chemical we get from Waxy. I can share it with you later. I'm not sure the name of it. It takes about 10 minutes to sanitize, 10, 15 minutes, depending on the individual. And it takes 10 to 15 minutes to dry, maybe faster. We're planning and preparing to sanitize buses once we start rolling 100% twice a day, after the morning runs and then after the PM runs. But we're also working with facilities right now because they have a meter that measures particles in the air or germs, or I'm not sure exactly what it is. And if it can prove that that air is clean overnight without sanitizing, we're going to omit one of the sanitizing at the end of the day, only during the summer because it gets so darn hot that it'll kill anything. Nothing can live.
Right.
So that's our plan for sanitizing the buses. But
will the drivers have that with them, and it will be their responsibility, or will you have like custodial services that are going to come through your buses and clean those?
No, we'll do it ourselves. Yeah, it might affect FTEs. So I'm thinking maybe we may hire somebody just to do disinfecting.
Okay.
We're going to have to weigh out the options, overtime versus another position or a temporary position.
Got it.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, well, this is Tommy at Litchfield. I just sent the proposal to the superintendent's office and it was approved. We're going to use a product from Buckeye Cleaning Supply, which is, what our district uses. It's called E23 or something, but it also, Ernie, has that 10-minute dry time. But we will be disinfecting after morning routes. The drivers will have it in a spray bottle. We'll put the windows down. They're going to spray it so the fresh air can come through and it dries. After midday routes, they will do it. And then in the evening, they will do it as well. And then in between runs, they'll be using Lysol wipes on the stairwell area, on the handrail, and that kind of stuff. And then what we're doing is we purchase those reusable grocery bags, like the big plastic ones, the heavy, thick plastic ones. Mm-hmm. We're loading those up with all the drivers. Each driver will have one for a bus. It will have the spray bottle with the cleaning solution in it. It will have a box of disposable gloves. It will have like 30 to 40 disposable masks in it. It'll have the Lysol wipes, and then they're just going to bring that in and out from the bus every day. So while it's on the bus, it's up under the driver's compartment, not in students' reach. And then my staff will just be filling the bottle up as it needs it again. But our drivers will be disinfecting. And my superintendent was very, very happy with that. And we just talked that we would just keep seeing how it's going and if we need to address something from that.
Okay, so like it's
What we all have
super
to,
fluid.
what we all have to be cognizant of is DPS, those chemicals
Correct.
on the bus,
Yeah.
how you're storing them. So that could become,
I did talk to Sergeant Larson about that. 2 days ago, yesterday, I think it was. We had a phone conversation. They're working on some guidelines too that they're going to also release about what is going to be allowed on and off the bus. I did talk to him about the hand sanitizer, whether it's going to be like, our thought was a jug with a little pump that the kids, we could probably figure out how to fasten right at the top of the stairs. So as they come on, they just pump, wipe their hands, and then walk onto the bus as they're getting a mask. So, they were open to that. They definitely didn't see how in this time period that they could say no, as long as it was under the supervision of the driver and had a way to be secured. I would think that if we're talking about some type of aerosol or fogger, something like that, we would probably need it off the bus or in some sort of storage facility. But he was very adamant that he's been monitoring everything that's been going on from state to state, and that they're working on a draft document right now to get approved by his superiors before they release it out to us for review. Trace,
Okay.
do you want to share what you're doing? You and I had a conversation the other day about the fogging machines or the misting machines that you guys are buying there at Gilbert.
Yeah, we've got. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We got you.
Yeah, we've got 10 electrostatic mister units ordered. We've got our operations are using them for big areas, cafeterias and gyms and stuff like this. And I borrowed one, and it takes about 3 minutes per bus and about a minute to dry. And it uses a chemical called QT3 from Hilliard, is what we've used right now, and it smells really clean. It's not overpowering. It doesn't hurt you while you're misting the bus or anything, breathing it. Seems pretty decent. And like I said, 3 minutes per bus times 200 buses is a lot of time, but we plan on doing it after the AM routes and after the PM routes.
Who's going to do it, Trace? Is it going to be drivers or designees?
Probably designees. I don't know. I'm even kicking around having like somebody meet them at the gate, and they could probably do the bus while he's parking, and then run back, catch the next bus as they came in, or maybe line them all up at the wash rack and do them one by one. I haven't figured that out.
Has anyone thought about the ultraviolet light way of sanitizing to kill the germs? Because that seems to be working from what we're reading also is the ultraviolet light.
I haven't looked into that, but I did talk to Canaan State, Brian over there. He was saying that they were researching a way to install it in the AC ducts or like in the filtration unit somehow. So as the air is being circulated through the bus, that it would pass through that UV light and, hopefully be killed that way. He said he would share some more information as it became available. So that was
maybe next week an update.
Yeah, that was a couple days ago when I talked to him. So I don't, that's about as much as I know from what they're looking at. Doug?
Hey Trace, how much were those machines? What were the costs?
They're about $750 a piece, and we're buying 10 of them.
Can you email that out to
Hilliard?
people? Or?
So
I don't have it here because I'm at home, but I've got the unit sitting on my desk. I can take a
I'm gonna
picture
stop share this for a minute and do this just so you guys can see. I've already kind of have a form survey together that's gonna have a place for you to, can you see this? It's going to have an opportunity for you to capture this information, and it's all going to dump into a spreadsheet. So everybody who's responding right now, this I think is going to be the best way to find out, so Trace, you can put in there, I think it says, let me move this window, required PPE, and we'll go over this in just a minute, but just wanted you guys to know, I know a lot of questions are being asked in the comments about, can we share this information? So I just want to get the dialogue going about that stuff and kind of get your thoughts, and then we'll go through the survey. And I think that will be helpful to have a place to go back for everybody to reflect on and do a little bit more research. Yeah, resource about what they've been hearing.
Does that mean Jason, you're going to add me to your email list?
Say that again.
No, we're not going to add you. We're not adding you, Trey. Sorry. Hey, Jason, you said you're recording this video. Then what we can do is we can put it up and share the video for people that didn't get to watch it with us on the YouTube page under TAA as another resource that's out there as well.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely
when I get somewhere to sit.
We're gonna definitely try and take advantage of TAA's webpage hosting and see what we can do to embrace the resources that we already have. So we'll get this link up there, the survey link and the spreadsheet link, and that way there's a spot at the top that will capture your information as well. So say Doug wants to call Trace, he'll have his email and phone number on there. That way, if you have a specific question for him about something, we can all share that. So,
and everyone needs to go to YouTube to our Transportation Administrators of AZ page and like it and subscribe so you can get all the updates when we post new stuff, like this video when it comes out.
Tommy,
Right.
this is at the selling point now.
That sounded like a commercial.
Yes.
right.
I spent too much time talking to vendors. I've way too much time talking to vendors.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Ernie.
I just sent you an email with a link to a cordless electrostatic backpack sprayer.
Okay.
If you would share it with everybody.
Sure.
You can probably do it easier than I can.
Yep, I can certainly do that. So we talked about now, I guess, social distancing on the bus, school district altering their days and school calendar and plans for sanitization on the bus. Vanessa talked a little bit about it already, but what are the initial thoughts about how to communicate and what are you doing as far as staffing goes to? I'm sure there's going to be several phone calls that we're going to be fielding from parents that are going to want to know what the plan is for the school bus. So does anybody want to share? Vanessa, you can, if you want to chime in again, you certainly can, but if anybody else has already started working on plans about relaying back to the community about what the school bus is going to look like for those that have developed pretty good plans, if anybody wants to share out.
I think one of the things, go ahead.
I was just going to say we're sending out information through social media pages, both in transportation social media and also our school district social media. And then Queen Creek has a PR person who disseminates information to the community regularly. They've already been doing basically just about weekly updates throughout this whole school closure situation. Queen Creek was actually pretty ahead of it. We were already spraying buses and offices and schools when the school closure took place. We actually started planning everything about a month before school actually closed. The associate superintendent was monitoring the COVID situation closely. We started having dialogue about it in early January. So, information has already been getting out to parents consistently, I would say on a weekly basis.
And I think too at Kyrene, they've done a nice job of keeping families informed of what's coming, what we're doing currently. I mean, everywhere ranging from the learning platform to the return to school potential and options, and then what's it going to look like forward to keep kids safe. So I would agree that we've had some communication for several weeks now. It'll just get more and more detailed, right? And the accountability, parents are going to want to know what happens if, and so those are hard questions to answer, and really who will answer those best.
Doug, did the form or the waiver that's going to be filled out, is that going to be included in, I guess, parents' enrollment packets or whatnot, and how are they going to capture that information and get back to you in transportation?
Yeah, it'll be for the existing bus riders that we've already identified, and any new enrollments. It'll be just, if it's a new enrollment, it'll be part of the packet. For the existing riders, we may end up calling one by one, which is, that's fine with us. There'll be social media, there'll be emails, there'll be our districts, because the size is somewhat small.
Okay.
Our superintendent can do a voice message out to everybody, and I think she's planning on doing that too about the waiver as it applies to if you have a student who's a bus rider and things of that nature there. So probably going to do a 3-prong attack registration. We'll contact, verify, and the third, the superintendent and the district office will reach out through social media and through a voice opportunity with them. So it'd be interesting to see what the waiver consists of, and hopefully I'll have it Wednesday. I can share it with you on Friday if there's some interest on that.
Sure. Anybody else starting to, starting to get those phone calls about what school bus transportation looks like? Has anybody fielded those phone calls from parents yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Our district has said we're working on it. So I think they put it out there that, hey, don't call us. We haven't got all the information. Don't bug us, so to speak. We're going to get this out to you within the logistics committee and education committees and the different committees that they've developed. And we've only had maybe 1 or 2 phone calls, about questions like that. So it's helped in that aspect of it.
Sure.
Yeah, at Alhambra, we're doing all of the above. I think we all are taking the communication piece, we're handling it in the same way. We're overly communicating to our parents and to our stakeholders, just so they know what our roadmap is and where we're headed, and that we are feverishly working on solutions to reopen school and keep everybody safe and healthy. So,
Vanessa, what was the feedback from the community when you guys changed the calendar to a 4-day work week?
yeah, that was, so in case you guys haven't heard, Alhambra is they're calling it a 2-1-2 school week. So students will not attend school in person on Wednesdays. So kids will go to school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will be a distance learning day. And then all students will be afforded the option to do virtual learning in the event those parents don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school in person. There's mixed reviews on it. Some people appreciate it, some don't. Nevertheless, the whole premise of it is that we can do deep cleaning on Wednesday so that students won't have to go more than 2 days in a row in an environment that hasn't been deep cleaned.
And will your staff be there? Is that going to be the driver's responsibility, and would be using that for like professional development day once they're complete?
So we haven't finalized what the driver's schedule will look like, or transportation bus driver and assistants, what their schedules will look like. We're leaning towards a 4-day work week, actually, with bus drivers doing only having drivers and assistants that need to come in for McKinney-Vento and out of tuition runs.
Got it. Steph, you want to chime in here about what you've been working on as far as your sheet that you're going to be getting ready to release to us?
I have been listening to what you guys are saying, and I want you to all know that you're right on track, and I am thrilled that you guys are doing this. I am sorry that you've had to do this. A couple of you know my opinion about the guidelines that came out from ADE. That was what we were hinging our hopes on, is that when a big document came out, it was going to give everybody some, here's a framework, here's some thoughts, and so I'm really thrilled for you guys that you're taking the initiative to do this on your own. The document, the trust has put together 2 different documents. If you're familiar with Kaylee Sorensen, she's the emergency management expert at the trust. She's putting out a big document along with transportation next week. I will send it out to you guys today if you make sure that I have your email address. The reason CDC and ADE and other Department of Education departments in the state, in the US, don't want to touch transportation is because of questions you're asking. How do you do social distancing on a school bus? It's virtually impossible. How do you sanitize a school bus and do it legally without liability? You got to be really creative, and it's almost virtually impossible. So a couple things. Make sure that I have your email address, and I will send you the document. I think it's an 8-page document that doesn't give you the answers that you need. It gives you talking points for when your administrators say, this is what we'd like to do. How feasible is it for transportation? So it just gets you thinking of, okay, what if we're asked to do this? What does it look like? As far as communication goes, you guys are all on the right track. If you're not surveying your parents, do it now and find out if saving money and saving route logistical changes can happen by finding out that, you know what, 40% of your parents aren't even going to send kids back to school. That's
Right.
a person. So communicate as much as you can. Secondly, about the cleaning stuff that you guys are talking about, you know, Trace is onto something really good about, you know, having the funding, first of all, is pretty incredible. Good for you, Trace. But then having that option of, you know, a quick, hey, I can assign somebody and do it. If you have the luxury of doing that, wonderful. I will caution you to make sure that any cleaning supplies that you use are EPA approved. And I'm in the document that you'll be receiving from me today, there's a list. And then any person that you assign to do training, to do cleaning, needs to be trained according to OSHA guidelines. So make sure, you guys will get into the weeds when you look at your whole program. Okay, what does this look like for transportation? The last thing I do want to say is about DPS approval. I begged student transportation. Jason, how long ago did we talk about this? A month? Yeah. To do something about cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer. And I got the answer that I'm sure you've all gotten in the past. Well, what does it say in minimum standards? We have to follow the guideline. That doesn't do you guys any good. So there's hope that Jason's conversation with Sergeant Larson will get us somewhere. I want to caution you very thoroughly though, and you know I'm the worst case scenario superhero here. I have to think about the liability for you. Make sure that if you want to have cleaning stuff on your buses and you want to incorporate something like DPS hand sanitizer, or excuse me, hand sanitizer things, and get DPS approval, that you get it in writing. Because I worked with Richard Moore over at Dysart, and initially he was told in person they could do cleaning stuff and hand sanitizer as long as it was in sight of the driver. But when I pressed them and Richard pressed them, they wouldn't commit to it. So before you commit to having something on the school bus, regardless if it's a cleaning solution or hand sanitizer, you make sure that you get approval from DPS. Because if something happens, something explodes, a child has a reaction to something, and you don't have that approval, then it's one of those things, okay, we missed it. So you guys are on the right track. Good job. Make sure that I have your email address, and I will send out that document later today.
Hey, Steph, and for everybody, any of the expenses that are incurred with this that's over and above normal situation, talk to your district financial people. This is going to be covered under the CARES Act, which each district is getting financial money from, and let them know that, hey, you know, if you're going to do a mist machine at $750 each, you need 5 or 10. That could be covered under your CARES Act, not under your budget number, and would not, you know, affect your budget. But there's money coming to the state, to the district under the CARES Act that we could possibly tap into for some of this cost of over and above things that are directly related to COVID.
And that's something you guys do need to think about. What changes are you doing in your departments ahead of time? Are you putting up partitions? Are you, are you changing logistically anything in your physical facility? Think ahead of time of what that's going to do to your budget at the end of the year. If some of the stuff doesn't end up being covered under the CARES Act, then be mindful in this particular way that whatever you're doing up front is going to affect that end budget at the end of the year. Good.
All right, we still have to stay within our encumbrance, right?
Yeah, at Kyrene, we've done the same thing. I'd like to echo that as well. We have one person that goes to all different departments throughout the district. I've worked with him very closely, identifying additional costs. We're looking to purchase 6 electrostatic sprayers to sanitize buses. Don't have every detail worked out yet. We use the same electrostatic sprayers in the schools to clean schools. So that's what we're looking at. We're sort of leaning towards masks on buses right now. Don't have that set in stone yet. But I would also caution being careful before going too far on the community on what you're doing. making sure you have board approval first before you start giving too many details to the community. And so, you know, we do a very good job at communicating with our parents and community, but got to balance promising too much, and the board may not agree with what you're, you know, the direction you're heading. So, hey, Jason, one other thing I'd like to bring up as well is if folks haven't been thinking about it, you probably already are, is we talk a lot about staggered bus arrivals. So we aren't dropping, you know, 5 buses worth of students all at one time. And so we looked at ourselves, and I don't know that at Kyrene we're sophisticated enough to stagger bus arrivals. However, we can stagger unloading. If 2 buses or more buses arrive at the same time, we could, you know, unload the front bus first, they leave, then you unload the second bus, third bus, or whatnot. So again, not a lot of details around that, but we're looking at a staggered. I talked to Shannon and Jason and Dan all the time about that. We're also looking at some sort of a staggered loading process. Again, that sort of falls on the school. They would stage students by bus in some manner, socially distance, and stagger the loading process. However, we want to be quick, we want to be timely, but we also want to make sure that we're social distancing.
Ask your leadership for a little bit of extra time to make that staggered unload and load successful, because you'll just need an extra few minutes.
Have any of you changed your bell times because of this?
We don't know yet, but back to your question about staggered, John, you might consider also lengthening the distance where buses are at as they unload and unload. Get them away from each other.
Right.
It may allow, instead of 6 buses in there at once, you might have 3 buses, but they'd be away from each other, and you can unload all 3 at one time because you've got them 20 feet apart or 30 feet apart, depending what your load zone loop is like on something like that, possibly.
Well, again, not board approved, but Kyrene is looking at reducing 1 hour per day from the school day. Right now, all of our 25 schools are at 7 hours per day. We're looking at going down to 6 hours and 15 minutes, actually 45 minutes, not an hour. And we're getting extra time between tiers. We have 3 tiers, extra time for extra things that are going to go on potentially on buses in this new environment. So we like the extra time between tiers, a little more, you know, a little more time to get kids to school on time. So a little bit of positive might come out of this, and we hope it stays after this is all over.
Sure. So let's transition real quick because we're coming up on the hour. This is the survey that I put together. So just some of the questions that we've obviously been throwing around email wise and hearing from others as we talk to each other on the phone. This is all I thought again this is gonna take everything that we've talked about, everything that maybe we haven't talked about quite yet, and put it into a spreadsheet that we'll all be able to go back and reference. What's Cave Creek doing? What's Queen Creek doing? What's Gilbert doing? And that way we can just kind of capture all of our thoughts and have a way that we can take this document back to our leadership at the district offices and show them, hey, this is collectively what the entire, Phoenix metro area is potentially doing, and maybe we can stand a little bit more unified and have a little bit of a voice on how we roll that out. So will your school district be altering the school year, school day? An opportunity for you to, kind of go in depth and explain that. Is your district planning to socially distance students on the bus? That's going to be for 12 students or less. So anybody that's actually collectively come up with a plan and is moving forward with that, that would be a yes answer. Please share any details that you can regarding on that. So we've seen those articles that are going out that show like what Colorado's doing. They're putting duct tape on their seats and they're saying only 1 kid per every other seat. So maybe just an opportunity to share that. What sanitation processes will be implemented. This is a check all. So that way we can see, just a way to see who's doing what. And then also what sanitation supplies your district planning to use. This is a paragraph. So Trace, if you want to embed, that hyperlink in there about what you're using for static electro machines, or I know at Kyrene before the school closure, we bought those Phen-O-D little spray cans about yay big that it's like a bomb. You just basically release the air in the bus, close the bus up, and it does that. So another place that we can share that. Any details that that maybe isn't captured in those 2 questions about bus sanitation. Any ways that you're planning to communicate if you're putting out surveys. Doug, you might put the waiver in there if you may not have a link to it, but just talk about that a little bit. I think that's a definite yes. I like that a lot, especially, for parents to see that upfront about what is going to be expected on the bus. Is your district planning to have an in-service? We could probably talk about that towards the end of the month, a little bit more about what that looks like for our staffs to return and have an opportunity to get their buses ready. How do we train them on what reassurance, how do we train them about what our expectations are going to be? Is that going to be an in-person in-service or more of a virtual meeting? How are you planning to communicate to parents about implemented procedures? And is your district suspending field trips, athletics trips? And do you have any topics or questions that you would like to have discussed for our next meeting? So is there anything that anybody else would like to add to this for the initial survey response that's going to go out?
Looks good, Jason. Thank you for putting it together.
Maybe a question about how you can get Stephanie to smile.
That's my thinking face, Doug.
Jason and I have had success with that, but usually it turns into more eye rolls, and that's why we're not allowed to sit together in physical meetings. But it can be done.
It's my thinking face.
Talk about the Seahawks.
If that's what you want to call it.
Brendan, I'll make the survey available. I'll send it back to the email group that's been going out, and I'll be sure to capture everybody that's in this meeting that may not be on that email chain. But I'll set up a web page or a page on the TAA website that will have this information that will start to kind of build and grow that so that it's a one-stop shop for everybody to go to. So hopefully that will help. And feel free as you receive it in the email to reach out to Steph and also pass it on to other leaders that may not be in this meeting. I think it would be important to get everybody's information in there as much as possible. So
For sure.
Before we separate, I have to share a social distancing story with you, if you all don't mind.
Go for it.
I was driving on the carpool lane the other day, and I got pulled over by a DPS officer, and he was about to cite me for violating the carpool regulations. And I go, wait a minute, officer, let me explain myself. I go, I'm social distancing. He goes, what do you mean social distancing? You don't have anybody in your car with you. I go, yeah, but my son's following me. He's behind me.
Did he let you off?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he understood completely.
The funny guy.
This was great, guys. Thanks again, Jason, for putting this together.
No problem.
We can never be too prepared. Even if we utilize one single thing we talk about, at least we have a plan.
Yep.
That's right.
So we'll see everybody hopefully again next Friday at 10 o'clock. You should have all received that calendar invite. Just click that link and we'll see you on Friday.
Alrighty.
Alrighty.
I have a question. Where's Tommy going?
Hey, Jason, do you have my correct email?
I believe so. You had an email going back and forth with Ernie that I have your email.
Yeah, I don't think I got the invite on that, but I can continue to use the same Zoom. But
sure.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty, no problem. If you put it in the survey, Doug, I'll make sure to capture it out of there as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. See you, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.